What's up, everybody? So today we're going to make the Hello Kitty kitten. So before we get started into this, just a few things we're going to do is before we even get into Maya, I'm just going to minimize this for now, is I'm going to create a new folder. I already did that for me already on my desktop. And I put in the front view. I'm actually going to rename this. Oops. So I'm just going to rename this to front and side. Oops. This way it's easier for me to see. You always want to put your reference photos into a new folder for your new project. I like to do it every single time. That way everything is very organized and I know where everything is right from the get-go. So now that's been done, what I'm going to do is I'm also going to set my project. So I'm just going to go to File, Set Project. I'm going to go find it in my desktop, so that's my Hello Kitty folder. And I'm going to hit Set, Create Default Workspace. Perfect. So now that I have that done, it's time to start prepping my scene to get modeled. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to hit Space, and I'm going to go into the 4 different views. So since I have 2 reference photos, one for the front view and one for the side view, what I'm going to end up doing is I'm going to go to View, Image Plane, Import Image. I'm going to start with the front view, so as you can see I'm in the front view of it. So Import Image. And right from the get-go, it automatically goes to that folder that has my front view. So I'm just going to open that, pop that in there right now. So that's good. I'm going to do the exact same thing with my side view. So Image Plane, Import Image. Click on my side, throw it in there. I'm going to go back to my perspective view. And what we can see now is my images don't line up. So we want to try to make them as symmetrical as possible, or at least scaled properly. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go to my scale tool. I'm going to use the center scale just to scale as much as I can to get it as even with the front view photo. So I did it with my side view. That looks pretty close. The easiest way of doing this is try to find some points of reference and use that as your guide. So in this case, I'm using like the tops of the ears, the bottom of the chin, the bottom of the feet, things like that. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take each one of these photos and I want it to go to one side. So starting with my side view, I know that's on an x-axis. So I'm going to make sure it's selected. I'm going to go translate x. I'm going to type in -10 and hit enter, and that'll bring it over there. I'm going to do the same thing with the front view, but since it's on the front view, which is the z-axis, I'm going to do -10 and translate z, and hit enter. As you can see, I also have this coming up right here where it just kind of tells me exactly what letters I'm pressing or what keys I'm tapping on, just to make it a little easier for you to see. So I thought that would help. The next thing is we're going to take both these photos. I'm just dragging a box around the 2 of them, and I'm going to go into my layer editor. So a layer editor is similar to something like Photoshop, for example, where you create layers, you could hide and see them. It keeps things very organized and makes things a lot easier to work with. So I'm going to create a new layer by adding those photos. So I'm going to click on this little icon. It looks like a diamond with a circle on it, and that should add a new layer. Now with that new layer, we have some information. We have this box right here for visibility. So if I click on it, it'll change the visibility on and off in case we ever need that. But there's this empty box right here that's going to be very important. So I'm going to click on it twice so that it says R, and R stands for reference. What that means is I could drag a box around, I could click them, I could do anything I want to them, but I won't be able to interact with them in any way. This is going to be very useful later on when we're working with our model because we don't want to accidentally move or scale these photos without realizing it. So the next thing I'm going to end up doing with this is I'm going to go to File, Save Scene As. I'm going to save this as Hello Kitty and save it, and it's automatically going to go into that folder. I'm going to hit Continue, and there we go. So the next thing I'm going to end up working with is the actual model. So we're going to be splitting between perspective, front, and side view pretty often. We'll go into the top a little bit, but not too much. So let's start with the general body shape. I always like starting with the front view, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Create, Polygon Primitives, and I'm going to create myself a new cube. So we got a nice cube right there. I'm going to go into my inputs, and I'm going to change the subdivision height, width, and depth to 4. So now they're all set to 4, and this will give me a nice amount of geometry to work with. I'll just zoom in a bit. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to turn on X-ray. So what X-ray does is we're just going to click on this icon right here. It looks like two squares intersecting each other. Is it makes my model transparent. So I'm just going to do it on my front and side view. Perspective view, I usually just leave it solid like this because I like to see the full object without having it transparent. But this will allow me to see my my reference photo and not have to worry about it too much. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to start with the body. Since Hello Kitty's feet are kind of sticking out this way, we're going to have to eyeball some things, but for now I'm just going to go to move this down here. And we want this roughly in the center of the kitten's body. I'm going to use my center scale tool, and I want to scale it up as big as I can without it going too far over. So I'm going to eyeball this right now, and I'm going to ignore the feet. And what I want to do is I want to kind of shape out the body. So the easiest way of doing this is going through the vertex and taking each line each row one at a time. One of the things I'd like to point out is using drag selections. Drag selections is going to be something we're going to use a lot. It's just dragging a box over what we want selected. But you have to realize that when we do this, it's working within a 3D space. So if I select these two vertices right here, you may only think you're selecting those two, but if we look at my perspective view right now, I've actually selected all the ones behind it as well. So you have to be very, very careful of that. So let's start with the middle. And I'm going to just zoom in on it right now, just so you guys can see really well. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the kitty's body as a reference. And I'm going to ignore the feet. And we're just going to use the scale tool. I'm going to use just the x-axis scale for now. I'm just going to scale it out until it roughly fits or hits that edge right there. In actuality, I might need to move this photo a little bit just to make sure it's a little better centered. So I'm just going to do that a little bit right now. Now I'm just going to turn it back onto reference. That looks better. So once I do that, I'm just going to be working my way up the body to shape out this model or this character. So we're just going to go in just like that. Then we're going to go do the bottom half. And all I'm really doing is just selecting one row of these vertices and scaling it using the x-axis scale since we're in the front view. So I do have to eyeball this a little bit because we have the feet in the way. But for now, this should be a good enough shot. So we did it right there. Now let's do the side. So the side is pretty close to being the same. We might need to shape this out a little better here, but we're essentially doing the exact same thing. So I'm going to take it, and I'm going to use the scale tool, except on the z-axis this time, and I'm going to also use the move tool, kind of shape it and fit the curvature of the body as best as we can. So all I'm doing is scaling and moving it into place. So I'm just going to go, and again I'm just eyeballing it and trying my best to shape it out how I need. You want to keep things as even as possible. It's just going to make life a lot easier later on when it comes to really shaping out the character's body. So we got that. And then for here, I don't want it to really go into the feet too much, so I'm probably going to edit this a little bit more. So I'm just going to take these, bring that over there. These, I'm going to go inward a bit. And here I'm just doing things manually. And then we get the back end. So this will kind of go out this way. This will go out this way more. This will go out over here. And that looks pretty good for the most part. Let's bring these in a little bit more. And that looks pretty good. So now that I have this part of the body done, you could bring these up. Maybe I'll do that for now. But one of the things you might notice is we have this area right here where this looks a little bit too big of a gap to really hide. So I'm going to want to insert an edge loop here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to make sure I go into Mesh Tools, insert edge loop, and I'm just going to insert a nice edge loop about halfway. And that way I could go in, select that vertex, and move it into place. You could do this as many times as you want. I always recommend starting with a low amount of geometry first, and then working your way up. But it's really up to you. The less geometry you have, the easier it is to work with, but the less detail you have to work with it. So always keep that in mind. So if I look at my body now in the perspective view, it looks pretty good from the front and from the side, but it is pretty boxy if I look at it from the top. So we're just going to do a quick tool to round it out, or a quick tip. So what I'm going to do is I'm looking at it from the top view now. I'm going to go to edge mode. I'm going to hold shift, and I'm going to double click each one of these edges that are feeding outward. And the reason I'm doing that is I'm going to switch to my scale tool now, and I'm going to use the x-axis scale and then the z-axis scale, kind of go about halfway, and that's going to give it a nice roundness to it. So if I look at this now, oops, it seems like we selected the wrong edge somewhere. So let's just see what happened. So let's try that again. So I'm just going in and selecting those edges. There we go. So it's nice and round there, nice around here, and it's pretty good shape for the body. So in the next video, we're going to work on the feet and the arms. So I'll see you then. Thanks.